Trump lawyer Michael Cohen has been busy in court this week, but he's not the only controversial figure facing the judge and jury of public opinion. So how will media coverage of Cohen, James Comey, Stormy Daniels, and Sean Hannity affect the investigations and cases involving President Trump? Media critic Eric Wemple and opinion writers Jennifer Rubin and Jonathan Capehart are going to help us figure that out. I'm Molly Roberts, and believe it or not, it's only Thursday. Fired FBI Director James Comey told the world this week about his relationship with President Trump, and it sounds like they're on the rocks.
He's tweeted at me probably 50 times. I've been gone for a year. I'm like a breakup he can't get over. He wakes up in the morning.
That appearance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert was just one stop on a packed tour promoting Comey's new book, A Higher Loyalty. Comey is defending his version of ethical leadership. He thinks he lived that ideal in the run-up to the 2016 presidential election. And, as he tells ABC's George Stephanopoulos, he thinks President Trump decidedly did not.
I felt this effort to make us all, and maybe this wasn't their intention, but it's the way it felt to me.
Yeah, we can't hear the
to make us all amica nostra. We're all part of the messaging. We're all part of the effort. The boss is at the head of the table, and we're going to figure out together how to do this.
How strange is it for you to sit here and compare the president to a mob boss?
Very strange. And I don't do it lightly.
So, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders called Comey's book a poorly executed PR stunt to rehabilitate his reputation and enrich himself. Eric, is it working?
Well, I don't know. I think if you look a lot of people out there, he is degrading his reputation with the book tour, not the other way around. So, with some of the relatively petty things in the book, I will disclose that I have not read the thing yet, but I've read excerpts and seen all the interviews. But Comey before was above the fray. He is very much in the fray now, and that comes with its own price. And so I personally don't think that he has, reduced his stature by saying things that are quite obvious about President Trump and that many people of very common and reasonable sense have been saying. But, I think you probably have a different view on that.
I think there are two problems with what he's doing. One, he is advertising how much he dislikes this person, and as a witness, potentially, in either an impeachment proceeding or a legal proceeding, that's really not what you want from a witness. You want at least the appearance of objectivity, just the facts, ma'am, kind of stuff, and he's kind of blown that out of the water. I think the second thing is we've learned really how little support he has out there in the public. The right doesn't like him because of failure to lock her up, as it were, and the left doesn't like him because in their minds, and with some justification, he gave Trump the election. I think it's hard for people to accept that he is honest, but a man of very poor judgment. And I think that's kind of where I've come out in all this.
Okay, look. When the facts are so clear in terms of egregious behavior by the President of the United States, it's who could possibly be objective in that? You can argue whether he should have spoken up at the time in the way that Savannah Guthrie was pushing him. Yes. I think yesterday during an interview, well, why didn't you say so at the time? You can question that, but I do think that I agree with Eric that I think Jim Comey's overall reputation is still much more solid than the President of the United States. Also, I agree with Sarah Huckabee Sanders. He is trying to at least rehabilitate that part of the reputation he thinks that he has lost, and he's also enriching himself because his book is is it #1 on somebody's bestseller list. He's not starving, and in that regard, he is being very successful. And again, we were talking about this before we went on, and I think part of Jim Comey's problem is that he is engaging in an arena now as a civilian that he's never engaged in, and he's seeing just how choppy the waters can be.
I would hasten to make one point in response to what you said, and that is that you said that he has this negative opinion of Trump. I would point out that as an FBI director appointed to a 10-year term, which was cut off in the middle, and given that this was his dream job for the culmination of his entire career, I believe that he's behaved with a fair bit of equanimity and sort of calm,
Right.
given those circumstances.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how much of his contemporaneous notes and his experiences count. Because is it the body language that Trump used that's going to play a role, or is it simply the firing and then what Trump said about it after the fact? So in a peculiar way, the most important thing about Jim Comey is purely that he was fired. And the events leading up to that may not be that significant, in which case he's sort of a non-witness in a kind of a peculiar way.
What? Not significant?
Yes, because
so
his
that led up to his firing?
Because the obstruction case, if it comes, is going to be he fired him because of Russia. Comey doesn't directly have information about that, Trump does, and all of the events that followed it. So it's not necessary that I think he established for purposes of either impeachment or a lawsuit that Trump was trying to establish this patron relationship with him. The most important thing is he was fired, and he was fired because he told us because it was about Russia.
But he was asked to drop Flynn. That's a pretty big deal.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, are there other witnesses that can confirm that? We think so, but we don't know.
So you were mentioning how he's in an arena he's never operated in before, and that's totally true. And it feels a little weird to see an FBI director sipping wine out of a paper cup with Stephen Colbert. It's been interesting to me how one of the things Comey talks about is how important it is to preserve these norms around law enforcement. But doesn't it have some effect on norms to have the FBI director going out and hitting the talk show circuit?
Listen, we'll all come out worse at the end of the Donald Trump campaign. Norms, customs, attributes of dignity are a thing of the past apparently now. So
But
yeah,
he's
it does
fired.
bother me, but you know, it's kind of the way politics is these days.
But also, at a certain point, at what point do the people who are beaten up by the bullies, at what point is it okay for them to fight back? And that's always been my pose when it comes to Comey, when it comes to Hillary, when it comes to anyone who has written a book. And everyone's like, why doesn't she just go away? Why doesn't she just keep her mouth shut? Why won't he go away? Why won't he be a good law enforcement guy, keep his mouth shut, and let the system work? No. These are people with stories to tell. These are people who have inside information on what's happening. Our role as the public is to read what they have written, read them with some discernment and judgment, and come to our own conclusions. No book has all the answers or all the right answers.
As a host, you posed as a good host, you posed a highly provocative and flawed premise question, which is that in normal times, no, your former FBI director wouldn't be out doing
Right.
this.
Right.
But these are normal times. This guy was fired for, you
Right.
know.
Right.
For
But-
whatever reason, because we still don't know really. Was it Hillary's emails, his conduct, or was it this Russia
I think
thing?
we know.
And I think Jonathan is right in one sense. I think we give the public too little credit. I think people can believe that Comey is not black or white, but somewhat gray. That's a realistic, I think, observation. And to the extent to which he provides at least some context, I think it's important for people, particularly in this very polarized environment, not think that their guy is all right and true, or the other guy is all dark and evil. People have mixed motives for doing things. People have both selfish reasons and altruistic reasons, and it is history after all. So I don't think it's particularly helpful for the case in some ways, but on the other hand, certainly as a journalist and in the long term as a historian, I think we do want to hear from them.
I would plug at J. Rubin Blogger's piece on putting Comey between, she wrote this story, I know you talked about it earlier, referenced it, was the issue is judgment versus honesty, you know, poor judgment versus, and I think that is exactly the duality that we're talking about with him. Good job.
Thank you.
So, honesty. Let's talk about it. Beyond Comey's book tour, the FBI raid on Trump's personal lawyer's office could prove even more problematic for the president. Michael Cohen appeared in a Manhattan court Monday to request the right to look at documents seized by the FBI and determine which might be protected by attorney-client privilege. Also at the hearing, adult film actress Stormy Daniels, who received a $130,000 payment from Cohen to stay silent about her alleged affair with Trump before he became president. And on an interview with ABC's The View this week, Daniels' lawyer, Michael Hannity, predicted that Cohen would flip on President Trump.
Michael Cohen has a family, he has kids. I understand that he's a fairly devoted father, and he's not going to look at his wife and say, no, I'm going to go take a bullet for this president and go serve decades or 10 years or 5 years, at least 10 in a federal penitentiary. We want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And we're going to let all of these people decide when they have all the facts and all the documents and they hear from all sides who's telling the truth and who's lying to them, period.
If I can inspire or convince a woman who feels that she has been intimidated or bullied or is too afraid to come forward to an accuser and an attacker, then I'm happy.
So Michael Avenatti here says we're going to let all these people decide, and he makes this kind of big gesture as all these people is the people. It's all of us in the country, which is interesting because we have the court of law and we have the court of public opinion. How much does the court of public opinion matter in this case, Eric?
Well, obviously, Michael Avenatti thinks it matters a whole hell of a lot, and any good civil litigator sends the document to the courthouse and then gets immediately on the phone with journalists, if not before then, and that is what forces people into settlements. Blog posts, social media, so on and so forth. It forces the other side to go there, and so I do think that there seems to be a lot of both legal merit to many of the things they've been saying. And there is obviously a tremendous public receptiveness to it. So those two things go hand in hand.
I think what's going on here is we have an enormous PR campaign with a little bitty lawsuit attached to it. It's really sort of the tail, on the dragon here. Michael Avenatti is out-trumping Trump because he so effectively uses whatever little tidbit comes up, however consequential, non-consequential, to drag this out, to keep his client in the headlines, to paint the picture of Donald Trump and particularly Cohen as kind of thuggish, the thug, the sketch, and then the real thug, which Donald Trump somehow can identify as being completely phony, because my guy had a hoodie on, so he can't possibly.
My guy's not nearly that good looking.
Yeah, exactly. So we're kidding.
Are we really?
Yeah, well, so I think it's amusing to watch Trump kind of struggle with the mirror image of himself. And Avenatti, I don't know what kind of lawyer is he, but he's great at this, whatever this is. It's not really lawyering, but this is good.
But here, this has been my argument from the very beginning. We have the court of law and the court of public opinion. And Donald Trump has spent his life in both arenas, but spending more of his time in the court of public opinion to keep the court of law from breathing down his neck. So he threatens lawsuits, he doesn't pay, and none of these things happen. And he did it by weaponizing the New York Post in Page 6, by leaking, by, what was it, John Barron was his name when he would call up and leak stories about himself and other people. With Michael Avenatti, I think the genius behind Michael Avenatti is that he came into this realizing that Donald Trump's arena is the court of public opinion. And how do you beat Donald Trump? You jump into the court of public opinion and you play him and beat him at his own game. And that's what he's been doing. That's why he shows up in court. That's why he's on all the broadcast networks, all the cables, every cable show he can get to within 15 minutes, he is there. I bet if I were to ask him to do my podcast, he would come on and do it just to get his message out there.
I'm not at liberty to disclose that. He does all that sort of stuff. But the thing that really strikes me about all of this is that before Trump was elected, USA Today did this investigation and found over 4,000 civil pieces of litigation with Trump. And we now, as an electorate, American public, are seeing the continuation of that remarkable record play out day by day. And we're seeing it just basically continue. And it is remarkable to see the legal president. A lot of people call him reality TV show star. Of course, that's accurate. But he's also an unfolding legal drama, a walking,
And what happened in this, although we don't know exactly what precipitated the raid on Michael Cohen, is he accidentally stumbled perhaps into the most clear-cut, the best opportunity to really pin Trump down for something that he did, which is whatever this legal or extra-legal or non-legal or illegal operation that Michael Cohen was operating on behalf of Trump's benefit or the family or the organization, that that seems to now have merged with this story of Stormy Daniels and perhaps other women. And so he was able to kind of pierce through all of that in a way that, at least publicly, the special prosecutor has not been able to do. And I think we're going to learn a heck of a lot about Michael Cohen and the money and Trump's branding overseas and his travels than we ever knew before.
This is a thing that I find fascinating. So just every time we thought Michael Avenatti jumped the shark, he's gone too far. Like when he showed that disc, he tweeted out the picture of the disc saying, you know, watch out. And then nothing happened. Everyone's like, see, you know what? You've gone too far. And then something always seems to happen to actually prove him right. Who in a million years thought that after the 60 Minutes interview with Stormy Daniels, when everyone was like, well, that was limp noodle, that went nowhere, that Michael Cohen's office would be office, home, and hotel room would be raided. That was not anywhere on my radar screen. And that to me speaks to Avenatti's genius, which also makes me wonder the other piece of information we found out, that Cohen has been under federal investigation for months. I wonder, did a birdie tell Avenatti that that was in the background, and maybe he has known this for a while and just decided to go for broke in the hopes that whatever rumor he might have heard was true.
Right. So Michael Cohen
Maybe,
is now completely at the center of all of this. It was interesting to me when we started with Stormy Daniels. It was so much more about, oh, this is so salacious. Did you hear about the magazine? And now it is about what it really maybe should have been about from the start, which is the hush money. We have Michael Cohen, and we have all these questions about money. So we're wondering, and our viewers are wondering too, whether Michael Cohen is going to flip on Trump. I'm going to bring in some of the viewers. Martin E. says, you're going to interrupt Martin E?
No, I don't want to. But I have a point I want to make. Never. I would never.
You will have your say, but Martin E. He's short. He's brief.
You gotta have the readers.
He says there is no way that Cohen will turn on Trump. Too much money in the game. And Alba E. says she doesn't think that he'll flip either. These are both on YouTube. And that the dotard cult members of Trump seem like they would literally commit suicide first. Alba E. also says that she loves Jen Rubin and thinks she should win a Pulitzer.
Wow. Right. Isn't my mother clever using a full name?
Right, she changed her last initial. And so I'm curious what you guys think about the flipping, but I know that you wanted to say something first.
Well, the one thing I wanted to say was, it's the hilarious thing about these lawsuits for Stormy and Karen McDougal is that, like, they're looking for freedom to tell their story, and they've already told their story, like every possible detail with Anderson Cooper. And I know it's about not, shielding themselves from later, but it's hilarious, right?
The lawsuit is about maintaining a lawsuit, about maintaining this show, if you will.
Yeah.
It's not about what they get at the end. It's just about making sure Michael Avenatti can get on TV every day. That's essentially the vehicle by which he gets there to annoy Trump.
But it doesn't hurt Stormy Daniels either, because, bookings and things.
Totally.
But,
That was all
I think, back to the original question about whether Michael Cohen will flip, I think he will. One, because Avenatti in the clip you just showed just sort of asked the question, and also the stories about how Michael Cohen is very worried about his family. And all these other people talking about how when push comes to shove, loyalty to someone else versus protection of your family. When you're in the middle of in the vice of a federal investigation, family is going to win out. And if Michael Cohen chooses Trump over his own family, then he really is a chump.
I won't hazard any guess or prediction about that matter.
Trump's team said last week, I think, that they're more worried about what's going on with Michael Cohen right now than what's going on with the Russia investigation. Do you think that's a valid worry, Jen?
They may not know what the special prosecutor has, so maybe they're under concerned about that. But in the immediate sense, and it's funny for Trump, of course what's happening on television matters more. What is the show matters more than the special prosecutor who's quietly behind the scenes doing his work. And we forget, we really don't know what the special prosecutor is doing. Every time he files a suit, it's about facts we never knew, people we never knew, a whole world that's kind of below the surface. So eventually Trump is going to face, I think, the Michael Cohen problem and the special prosecutor problem, and they may intersect. For now, if he's worried about Michael Cohen, it does suggest, doesn't it? No one seems to have any doubt that there is stuff for Michael Cohen to flip on. No one is saying, but Donald Trump is clean as the driven snow. There's no way he flip on.
Right,
Everyone is just
well,
assuming it's there.
Think about this. Trump, several decades in the sleazy world of New York real estate, really sleazy world of New York real estate. What's the exposure there versus a campaign of, 20, 24 months, right? The exposure, I think, in the real estate, an entire real estate career, legally, strictly legally, would have to be greater. And you listen to Jeffrey Toobin, who I actually trust quite a bit. He thinks too that the case against Trump with the special counsel is drifting towards an obstruction thing, right? And so when you look at the stuff that they were alleged to have done in the real estate years, I mean, come on.
But here's the thing to keep in mind, and this is why I also think this adds to why I think they're worried about Cohen more so than Mueller. He can fire Mueller. He can't do anything to anyone involved in the Cohen suit, in the Cohen investigation. And so you take that plus several decades worth of sleazy New York real estate moves, and you've got a serious situation that he wouldn't be in had he not run for president of the United States.
Right.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely
said pardons. I was wondering about that because I've been
Let Ruby
can
know
he
she
pardon
knows the
Michael
pardon
Cohen, or if state laws come into play?
I think that is actually the answer to that. I think because these are financial crimes and reporting of campaign donations, there is plenty of a state predicate. In fact, what we saw this week was the Attorney General of New York, Snyderman, go in and try to propose a massage of the state law so that they would be able to try him and not be faced with a double jeopardy problem if he finally gets a pardon. So number one, I think it's going to be hard for him to get at these things. And number two, that's going to look, even for Donald Trump, pretty sleazy. What, he's pardoning Michael Cohen? That's what we're This is like, so I mean, it's just sort of beyond belief where we are. But I think to Jonathan's point, he's exactly right. Everyone thinks Donald Trump is destroying norms, me included, destroying democracy. Guess what? The norms of democracy are above Donald Trump. He has nothing to do with Kimball Wood, who's the judge. He has nothing to do with the Southern District of New York prosecutors. That's the way the system is supposed to work. And gosh, it actually is.
Hannity, too.
Oh, yeah.
Hannity, too. And that is exactly where we're going next. So at this,
Into the gutter, you were
that was
first,
way better than the transition I had prepared, so thank you. No, it was great. I was trying to figure out how to do it
I do not want
smoothly.
to
You did it
step on
for
your
me.
toes again.
No. You're raising my feet, or some better phrase, metaphor. So at this same New York hearing, it was revealed that Fox News host Sean Hannity is one of Cohen's clients. Hannity is also one of Trump's biggest champions and is often treated as an informal advisor. Now he's distancing himself from the president's lawyer.
Michael Cohen never represented me in any legal matter. I never retained his services. I never received an invoice. I never paid Michael Cohen for legal fees.
Whatever their legal relationship is, one thing is clear. Fox News host Sean Hannity and Trump's personal lawyer have a history.
Michael, a lot of people have asked me, because they know we've been friends a long time, why isn't Michael going with the president-elect? Have you decided to take on any role? And joining us now, Executive Vice President and Special Counsel to Donald Trump, Michael Cohen, is with us. How are you, sir?
Sean, how are you?
Now, wait a minute. Am I allowed to look at this?
Sean, I'm a Democrat. I don't feel I'm a registered Democrat. You know that.
Sorry
I don't feel that. Well, thank you.
So there's a Hannity tweet that says, as a talk show host, sometimes I report the news straight with no opinion, do news-making interviews, break news, do investigative reports, etc. Other times I give strong opinion, debate others, and moderate debates. It's all part of being a talk show host, and I am a conservative. So my question for you, Eric, is what is Sean Hannity? Is he a journalist? Is he an opinion commentator? Is he an entertainer?
All right, well, you can debate the content, and Ruben is all over Hannity. She knows him like really well. So, but anyway, the point I would make is that whenever, like we are here at the Washington Post branding is on our thing. Viewers, readers have a right to expect journalism. When Sean Hannity is on the air, the Fox logo is in the lower left of the screen. Fox News. When you're looking at a news product, you have every right to expect that that is journalism. And that's what the American media has trained people to expect. For Hannity to try to weasel his way out of that or wiggle his way out of that obligation is wrong. It's corrupt, like many other things that he does. And to buy his talk show host argument and to promote it and to use that as a defense for Hannity is to basically assist Fox News with its PR efforts on this. If you work for a news outlet and you're on the air, your obligation is to work as a journalist. That's.
I would say two things. One, I'd like to see that part of his show that's actually a straight journalism. I don't think I've ever seen it in
that's
20
when
years.
Henry comes on.
Yeah, so I think that's a complete myth. And secondly, this notion that if you're an opinion journalist, that everything goes out the window. Right. That's absolutely wrong. Jonathan and I, if we are engaging a lawyer that we are talking about, we better identify our conflict. In fact, we probably shouldn't be writing on them at all. And
you could argue it applies more to opinion.
Absolutely, because what opinion is that you are supposed to be, the premise is, I'm giving you my independent judgment. I am not acting as a surrogate for the President of the United States. Sean Hannity is acting as a surrogate for the President of the United States, and he should come clean on it. And frankly, I've never understood, other than this desire to mislead the public, why they allow that logo to be used on any of their nighttime hosts. It shouldn't be that.
It should be Friends.
It should be Friends, or it should be whatever, just Fox.
Sean.
Yes, Sean. And there you go. But they do it for a reason, and that's the pretense of making it real news, because their audience likes to suspend disbelief and think this really is news. And in order to keep up, the whole charade, they have to have the Potemkin village. Set and chair and Chiron and everything like that. So he's going to pretend to be a journalist when he's doing none of the things that journalists are allowed to do.
Well, Teapot's been on cable news. You should.
Well, two things. One, when I interviewed Eric Holder for the K-Pop Live event for my podcast here at the Washington Post with all the branding and everything, in my introduction, no one told me I had to do this. I felt duty-bound to disclose that Eric Holder officiated my wedding.
Yeah.
And I did it in one sentence. It put it out there. It didn't. I don't think it diminished in any way the interview that I did. But it's that duty to disclose that I felt compelled to do. And the other thing is, to add on to what Jen said about what it means to be an opinion journalist. The other thing is, we do our own reporting. Not only do we we give you our independent view, it's that independent view comes from talking to people, doing our own research, and coming to our own conclusions, not on the side, advising the President of the United States or engaging in, conversations with the personal lawyer of the President of the United States. What did he say? Hannity said, most of the things we talked about was real estate. I got real estate help. That should be disclosed.
Right, exactly. And one point I'd like to make on this, I was thinking about writing it today, although the story is on its last, maybe on its last legs. But anyway, the point is, never too late. The point is that when Hannity gets on TV and says, I didn't pay him, no invoice, may have given him $10 or whatever, the notion that he would take legal advice for free gives him a deeper conflict of interest, because if you pay your lawyer a market rate, you're like, everything's even. You're free and clear. Right. You feel no particular or special allegiance to that person because you paid him. Like, we're straight.
Right.
I can be independent of you. But if you take something free from someone, it's like, okay, you're my buddy.
Right. And just to underline the conflict here.
Eric's looking over somebody coming. What's happening?
All right. As getting back to the facts for a moment, there does seem to be a difference of opinion. Remember, his name was disclosed because Michael Cohen said he was a client, and for purposes of helping to sort through the documents. So for someone who didn't get any legal advice and never was represented in a matter, why are there pieces of paper with his name on it? there obviously was some kind of relationship. So they should work it out between the two of them, because either for no good reason, Michael Cohen is lying about having Sean Hannity as a client. Why would you do that? Or Sean Hannity is lying about the nature of the
Sean Hannity wants attorney-client privilege when he's not a client.
And he wants to say Michael Cohen's a fabulous lawyer. I mean, it's all gets so good.
So I do want to say we were talking about the difference between news and opinion journalism and what one feels duty-bound to do, and I feel duty-bound to inform viewers, just in case anybody's new to the program, that this is an opinions roundtable. We are opinion writers, so that is separate from the news side right there, back behind us on our non-Potemkin set. We're out of time, but not out of opinions. So check us out at WashingtonPost.com/opinions. And if you feel like you haven't had your own day in court yet, remember, it's only Thursday.